Hi, this is Dan Denning, the Melbourne, Australia-based correspondent for the Daily Reckoning. Thanks for joining us today. And what you'll see following on our website at www.dailyreckoning.com.au is video evidence of my trip this weekend to the G20 summit, which was held in downtown Melbourne, which is about 15 minutes east of our offices at the Old Hat Factory. Now, normally we sit here at the Old Hat Factory and read over the internet or through the newspapers about what's going on in the world, and then we tell you what we think matters and why it matters. But I had a chance this weekend to actually go and see for myself what the news was. And this seemed like an opportunity that was too good to pass up, because typically when you see coverage of summits like this on the internet or on television, you see one of two things. You see either what the media wants you to see, or you see what the protesters want you to see. And sometimes neither of those things end up having any relationship to what actually happens on the ground. So the fact that we could go see it for ourselves led me to believe I should take my handy digital camera and go down and talk to the people who were there and see what it was they were doing there. So the 4 clips we've posted for you on our website, and again that's at www.dailyreckoning.com.au, are interviews I did with 3 people and then some general footage I shot of the protests. Now this was after some of the violence you may have seen on TV, but you'll hear some interesting comments from people on whether or not violence itself is a legitimate form of protest. But there were also 3 issues that came up that I wanted to focus on in these video clips. The first was an issue, or a word, that's becoming more and more a part of the anti-globalization forces on the left and on the right. And that word is neoliberalism. Now, not many people know what liberalism itself means, much less what neoliberalism is. But I found some people who had the word neoliberalism on their banner and had some interesting things to say about it. So I asked them what they were doing there and why it was they were upset that they hadn't been included. And I think you'll be interested in what they had to say. As I moved up Collins Street and around the Grand Hyatt in Melbourne, the crowds thinned out, but I also found some people who were milling around an area where there had obviously been some violence earlier in the day. I asked those people more about what the purpose of the protests were, what kind of people were there, and what their general attitudes toward violence and nonviolence are. And again, the response is interesting, although what I heard off camera was probably more interesting than what people were willing to say on camera, and I've written about that on the website, although I won't go into it in detail here. Finally, there was an interesting thing going on across the Yarra River in Melbourne, which I had mentioned in the Daily Reckoning last week. There was something called a carnival beyond capitalism, and what the organizers had described as the really, really free market. And in theory, this was a market that was designed to operate entirely different than the one you and I live in every day. In the really, really free market, there were no prices, and therefore nothing was for sale. Everything would operate on the barter principle. So I wanted to go to a bookstore and buy a couple of copies of a Milton Friedman book and see what the market value of those books are in a really, really free market. But I decided it would probably be better to show up with as little cash in my pocket as possible and no possessions and see what I could get out of it. Unfortunately, as you'll see, I didn't find that much at the really, really free market, which either proves that the invisible hand is more invisible than we all think, or that not that many people were interested in the idea. I'll leave the conclusion up to you and show you the video evidence. All in all, it was an interesting day, and I was glad to bring my camera down there and get the interviews. I hope you're pleased with the results. If you have any trouble viewing these, or if you have some comments and feedback you'd like to give us here, just send us an email at dr@dailyreckoning.com.au. That's dr@dailyreckoning.com.au. And just for the record, so you know, the Australian version is now read in over 70 countries worldwide. Just this week we had new subscribers come online from Iran, Bulgaria, and New Caledonia. So we're read in all time zones around the world, and a lot of people are interested in what's going on right here in Australia. So we thought with one of the world's major news stories taking place in our own backyard, it would be a good idea for us to cover it firsthand and let you know what's going on. Here are the results of that coverage, so thanks for your time and attention. And again, if you have any questions for us, feel free to send us an email at dr@dailyreckoning.com.au. Until then, see you later.